I just think we need to just rub it out of our whole lives, right? Because everyone who's anyone has had bumps on the road to the thing they're going for, right? So I just go for stuff and expect it's not going to come easy. But is that failing? I don't know. Sometimes you turn up to an audition and you're not prepared, or you are prepared, you forget your lines or whatever. It's did I fail, or did you just fucking have a bad day? Right? I just think language is so powerful. And I think, I don't know, unless it's a test where there was 10 out of, you got 10 questions and you got 9 wrong and oops, they put an F there. How do you fail? I don't know.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Today's guest is simply delightful. Genevieve, or Jen, is hilarious, honest, and real. All the tools for a brilliant conversation. This was a really fun chat, and I love Jen's stream of consciousness and insights. It was wonderful to hear. She delivers and more. She's also a beautiful storyteller with so many great stories, with incredible insights and lessons learnt. Jen also has some shows coming out in October called Fly Girl. We talk about it. It sounds brilliant. She's a seasoned performer and writer. If you're in Sydney, go check them out before they sell out. Links are in the episode notes. Okay, let's get into it. Genevieve Hegney is an actor, writer, and performer. She's performed extensively in theatre, film, and television. You probably recognise her from her role as Chiara in the groundbreaking and award-winning comedy Colin From Accounts. Her other television credits include All Her Fault, Sunny Nights, In Our Blood, Pieces of Her, Young Rock, Diary of an Uber Driver, Tim Minchin's Upright, Kinne Tonight, The Commons, Doctor, Janet King, The Kettering Incident, Here Come the Habibs, The Moodys, Camp, Bedhead, Devil's Dust, Rake, Spirited, All Saints, Home and Away, The Alice, and Out There. Her film roles include Riptide, The Little Death, Burning Man, Preservation, and Happy Feet. Short films include Red Ink, Outbreak, Generation, and Desirable, which she won Best Actress at the Kaleidoscope Film Festival. She's also done so much in theatre, and she's currently in the Troy Kinne show Full House, which is available on YouTube. As a writer, Genevieve and co-writer Catherine Moore wrote the play Unqualified and Still Unqualified for Ensemble Theatre. They've also recently received funding from Screen West and Screen Australia to adapt Unqualified for television. Genevieve also co-wrote, produced, and acted in the short film The Amber Amulet and won an Augie for Best Screenplay in a Short Film. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about Colin From Accounts, the industry, Tell All, her brand new show, Being Still, her latest comedy nomination, Unqualified, drama, verse comedies, getting into nada and competitiveness, accidentally manifesting, pilot season, plus so much more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. Should we start from our conversation from the other day where we were talking about your wonderful comedy nomination? I'd love to know how that felt.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Do you know what? It was very nice to be recognised, because when you've been a long time in the industry and you're not a lead, then it means perhaps you made an impact. However, I'm sort of old enough to see awards as a little bit kind of crazy, because how do you judge who's funnier than someone else when you all do different things.
Yep.
So I kind of take it all with a grain of salt, in which case, at which point the excitement levels weren't high. I was just like, that's really nice. And it's funny because when people are younger, like I work a lot with a lot of young people, they're like, oh, you excited? I'm like, am I excited? I don't think I'm excited, actually. I think I'm just like, oh, that's really sweet. And also because, I mean, this was my bugbear. I think we talked about this. There's only one category for comedy and 4 for drama. You've got, you know, if you're in a drama category as best supporting actress, there might be a chance you could win that category, or I could have won, at which point I probably would have been nervous.
Yeah.
You know, I might have been like, oh, wow, I do want to say some things, and I hope that I don't get up there and, you know, cry like Gwyneth Paltrow, although I think at this age she just can't be bothered crying anymore. But because there was only one category for men, women, leads and supporting.
Which makes no sense. It
makes no sense. And it's that thing where, you know, it's like comedy's, you know, drama's poor cousin, but it's not, because this is like, we all know, well, I don't know if we all know, but it's much harder to make comedy work than it is drama.
Yep.
It's harder to make someone laugh than it is to have a cry yourself. Like, that's the truth. It is. Like, I do drama and comedy, and it's harder to make sure that the rhythm works, that the connection works, that you're present enough, that you're like sometimes improvising in order to make a moment work. Whereas in drama, they can chuck some sad music behind you, right? And, you know, have you say the line, I have cancer. And most people are going to want to cry about that, because it's an easy, you know, like road to your heart. And we know those movies that have like tricked us into crying, like really bad American movies that at the end the music swells and you're like,
it's playing with my emotions.
Whereas to make someone laugh, you actually have to make them laugh.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, by and large. So I think what's a bit sad is that we don't have more categories, so that then more people would have an opportunity to have won an actor. And there is a kind of madness that, like, Patty and Harry, who are Colin From Accounts leads and it's been worldwide, you know, the kind of accolades for them, that neither of them have won an actor for that.
I know, it blows my mind.
It blows your mind, but it's just the way that the categories are. And again, I have no doubt the actors are trying their best. I don't even know how to say it. Is it actors, artists? They're absolutely trying their best, because they don't have unlimited funds. You know, there's always something that's going to come to take away from something else. Otherwise, the whole show would go for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But yes, and obviously someone like me is going to go, why can't we have more actual acting categories? And other people, say, who are hosts of factual TV, are going to go, well, we deserve something. And then, you know, if you're making muster dogs, and you win, and you know, it feels good to win an actor, you did a lot of effort to put the muster dogs on. Whereas I might say, I mean, do the muster dogs, do they need an orgy? I mean, actor. Nothing against the muster dogs people, because they actually seemed really nice. And actually, those dogs are so cute.
I hear what you're saying. It still like blows my mind. And we were talking about this before, like with the comedy awards. And I know you're not in it for the awards, but it's nice recognition, as you said. You know, you've been doing this for a very long time, and it's nice to have that. But still, like, to have the one award, and then you have the leads with the non-leads. With the
supportings, yeah. So, like, there's my joke was, if you're in Top Gun and Maverick's against Goose, I mean, how's Goose winning when Maverick's in every frame? And he gets to kiss Kelly McGillis and go up against Val Kilmer. You know what I mean? Tom Cruise is winning that award, no matter how good Goose is.
So what were you thinking when you got nominated? Was, you know...
I was really shocked. Like, what was lovely, the lovely part was I was incredibly shocked, because I thought I just didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I did expect, so when Helen was nominated, Helen Thompson, just the extraordinary, consummate, like, beautiful, professional, excellent human, funniest woman on earth, was nominated last year as a supporting actor in that category, actress. I was like, of course she was. Like, she made such a splash in that show. There's something about Helen in that part, which I believe Harry wrote for her, or at least had her in mind for, that made such an impact that I was like, yeah, give that woman a nom. But for me, I'm just doing what I do, and it didn't seem, you know, like, it's kind of, it was pleasantly surprising.
That's nice. And I'm very proud of you, and we'll talk about the Australian industry, because it is not easy to get a nomination, let alone the categories and all of that. It's hard to get work, and this has been a game changer. We'll talk all about that. I believe you when you told me that because you thought Patrick and Harriet would win because they were the leads, and that's generally how these things
Yeah,
go.
and Kitty Flanagan won, and she's fantastic. And again, she's paid dues for 30 years. Like it's just if there was more categories, there'd be more of us all walking home, wouldn't we, with a few more things?
I definitely at least one person from Colin From Accounts, because we'll get into it, but it's a game-changing comedy.
Yes. Oh.
And I love it, and it's inspired me. I forget what I was saying. Oh, you said that you were going to potentially, if Harriet or Patrick won, you would have got up.
I would have had to get up. Yes, I would have.
And
they sent me well, Patrick sent a speech, and I mean, I feel like he wrote both of them because they just, I think I can say this, they just adopted a second baby, so who's 3 days old, so they couldn't come. And yes, Patrick sent me a speech that was quite lovely, except the top where he wanted me to read it. He said, here's the speech, don't bother reading it till we win, if we win. I mean, he didn't say till we win, but if we win, don't read it until then. Like, cold read it, I dare you to. And I was like, if he's saying that, there's going to be something in there that's humiliating. And I was right. He was pretty much like, hi, I'm Jen, and I poo my pants. I think that was kind of where it started. And I was like, Patty, I'm not going to say that, and I'll tell you why. It's not your best work.
That's actually so funny. You can imagine, like, you're reading this the first time live on air, and you're like,
hey, now that I say my dog doesn't bark, she's actually proven me wrong. I think there might be someone delivering. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Do you want to go
yes. Well, no, because I can't be bothered. As long as she doesn't bark again, no.
You can.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. So that was his joke. It was something like, I poo my pants, and Pat didn't tell me to say this. This is just some problem that I have. And I called him in America and was like, okay, mate, I'm not going to do your joke. And it's not because it's stupidly humiliating. I said, it's just not your best work. I said, I think you've just become father. I said, and you're really tired. And he was like, oh, come on. I was like, no, I'm not. I said, I'll make it, I'll pop you some better jokes if you want, I'll just finesse some of what you've got here. And we laughed. He was too busy with a baby to fight me.
Well, we'll agree to disagree his priorities, because I think clearly the priority was getting that speech out there. But that it would have gone, I know you're not in it for the viral stuff, but that would have been the funniest thing on TV.
Would it?
Especially with the joke. Because it's not a great joke, but it's so funny. But
it's so stupid. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a joke upon me and and actually the next bit was, and this isn't an issue of incontinence. This is just what I like to do.
Okay. I think it's brilliant.
You could. Yeah. Well, maybe you should write to Pat and say, look, I'm really sad.
I think that
your incredible speech didn't get out there.
Yeah. That would have been amazing. Okay. I lost my train of thought, but I think that's
all right.
That's so cool that you had that whole experience. Do you ever think, when you're at NADA, that you would get like a comedy nomination and you'd be part of a show like this?
I hoped I would, I think on some level, but no. I think I just was so excited. Look, I was at NIDA. It was a tricky time. We had some excellent actors in our year and in the years above and below at NIDA. Like, it was a time when really NIDA, WAPA and VCA was kind of big-ish at that period, with Lindy Davies running it, who'd come from NIDA. And so there was only about 3 schools, and I think QT was starting, but the other, and Nepean was there, so the odd people coming, but really there were only, in a way, like WAPA, NIDA, VCA. So you sort of knew everyone who came out, and it was really tough to get in. Not that it's not tough now, it's actually probably tougher, but at the time I think it was like 2,500 people auditioned, 20 got into NIDA, right?
Whoa. So
the odds were crazy. And I absolutely did not believe when I got in that I actually got in. Like, I was kind of a bit shocked, and turned up to the first day at NIDA thinking that my name wasn't going to be read out, because you sit on the stairs and they go, so welcome, blah, blah, blah. And I thought they're going to say Genevieve Hegney or something. And I'm going to go, I've got to go. And then it was a tricky place to be, actually. It really was. And hard, because you're coming from Western Australia, didn't know anyone, and blah, blah, blah. And sort of, I had a lot to learn, but also I have a big mouth, and I don't think that helped. Like, there was a few helpful hints I'd try and give to the management about perhaps how something's run, or let's have student assessment, staff assessment, or this is not working, or is. And everyone was like, you're so annoying, which is fair call, actually.
But sorry for interjecting.
Sorry. Yes.
NADA's been known to be quite cutthroat, and we'll talk about how it can potentially hinder or foster creativity. And sometimes when practices aren't working and they're a bit, I'm reading between the lines, sometimes change is needed. And it sounds like at a certain time, it wasn't They didn't want to hear it.
Well, yeah, absolutely not. No. And yet the thing is, I had some of my most extraordinary times there. I learned from extraordinary people. It's just that the culture felt, look, it was teaching through criticism by and large, and that's not everybody. But it was kind of, I don't think it's the best way to learn. And yet it is true to say pressure makes diamonds. So some people go well with it. And if you survive it, there is a resilience that you get because you didn't die and crumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is the truth. But it was also the time when, like one role in, like I came to do plays. Like I thought that's all an actor was. I'm living in Western Australia growing up in the 80s and early 90s. I'm at uni. And really film and television, we had one show, we had like a country practice or, there was one show on television and you thought, oh my gosh, I'll never get on that. So plays would come to town and I'd see Bell Shakespeare and think, oh, maybe I could do that. Cool. So when I got into NIDA, I actually just thought I'll try and do theatre. So then the idea of like, oh, one day I'll win this, or not be nominated for an actor award, which at that point would have been the AFI, would be like mind blowing because that would have been Toni Collette and Jackie McKenzie and Rachel Griffith. Those were the people that were doing film. And in fact, they do theatre and then go to film. So I thought that was the trajectory. Being a television actor, really, it wasn't even that much of a thing. Especially, it's kind of like,
it was just not, there wasn't
a lot of it. And if you're in telly, you often or sometimes went from modeling, right? Or you went from, I'm 16 and I've never done this before, I was discovered and now I'm on a TV show, like I'm on Home and Away or Neighbours, right?
Yeah.
So, if you were studying theatre, then it wasn't like you thought you'd go naturally into telly. So the longest answer to your question is upon graduation in 99, so the end of the last millennia, I really thought we did something called Showcase or Agents Day or whatever you want to call it. I think it was Agents Day. And once you did it, the agents at that stage at least would all come, which is just not the case anymore. But like there might be 30 agents out there or whatever. And you did your one piece or your two little bits. Then you walked away and hoped that within the next week, when you finished the course, that someone, when you went into your assessment at the very end, they'd hand you a letter and say, this person wants to meet you or nobody wants to meet you. And I genuinely thought at the end of my time there, I don't think I will have any offers. And then I ended up getting like 13 people wanting to meet me and you absolutely could have knocked me over with a feather because
that's amazing.
And it's kind of what I talk about to people because I've taught it a bit at NIDA Open program. I taught at the Actors Centre and I've taught private coaching is I'm like, if you're great at drama school or you get treated well at drama school, it doesn't mean that you're great at the industry or that you get treated well in the industry. Like it's really, and sometimes people who get an excellent run through drama school have an assumption they're going to have an excellent run in the industry. And that's just not the case, right? Or vice versa, you get out going, I don't think anybody here likes me. And that's not true. Like a number of teachers were very, very kind, another number of directors, and I got great friends. But I felt overall like, oh, I'm not this style of place. Like it's not my place, right?
Yep.
Necessarily. And yet when I got out, I got a great agent. And then, I ended up in a Bell Shakespeare tour straight out of within 6 months. I was playing Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, which was my dream role. So I was, I was really shocked to actually be working in the industry that I had trained for because they drill it into you. It's 92% unemployment or whatever. So I didn't think necessarily I'd get out and get jobs. I thought, well, I'll get out and I'll, be a waitress or I'll work at a catering company and I'll try and earn money other ways and I'll hopefully build to be able to have acting and or whatever was around it, voiceover or whatever, be able to pay my rent rather than acting and serving people, canapes and devils on horseback at weddings.
Devils on horsebacks. That's
like a prune wrapped in bacon. It was quite big in the 80s.
Oh, I actually have never heard of that.
Quite delicious, actually. And bogan. It's a bit bogan, though.
A bit bogan.
Yeah.
I'll make it all.
It's not a blini with sour. It's not a blini with like smoked salmon, and it's not that. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a prune wrapped in bacon.
A tiny bit of smoked salmon. I've had 9 weddings since November.
What?
9 weddings. 8, 9 or 10. I can't remember one of them.
Since November. How can that be? You must be thinking, why do all your friends get married? Have you asked yourself that question?
Well, I got married in September, so I beat him. But
And so you got married, and then 9 people got married.
Yeah.
Oh, it's quite.
Well, actually 10 if there was another one in September, but
Well,
it just sounds better from November.
Is this the beginning of your feature film called 10 Weddings?
Oh my God, I never even thought about it.
Well, if you've never thought about it, that is now online. We've got that down. That means I'm co-creator.
I am very happy. I've written so many scripts. I just want to get something out there. We'll talk about it.
Mate, talk about it. Continue.
And I've seen the highs and lows. We'll talk about this when we're doing our writing. What do you call me? Yeah. But I've seen the highs and lows of weddings, and my God, they vary. And I know that you also did too.
They really vary. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I want to go back to Nada, and there are a few things that you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that when you're in year 11, you wrote in your diary and you came back like 8 years later.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even year 11. It was 11 years old.
Oh, I wrote.
So that was year 8. Yeah, year 8, I think, or something, or year 7, 8. But I can't remember. In Perth, it's different. We finished school at year 7 in Perth. So it was
that's true.
Yeah, it was like when I was probably year 6 or 7. Yeah.
And you wrote in your diary that you wanted to go to NADA and do, what do you say, Bell Shakespeare?
And work for Bell Shakespeare. Yeah. Because it was one of the only theatre companies that ever came to Perth.
But you manifested that at that age.
I weirdly manifested that. And if you were to ask me, are you a manifester? Did you read The Secret? I'd go, you're mental. I would. I'd be a bit like, okay, guys. Yeah. But
you did it.
I've grown to believe that evidently a goal set in your mind, which all is manifesting is, right?
Yeah.
You'll take the steps towards that goal, right? Even if it's subconscious. Because if I want to work for Bell Shakespeare, I read lots of Shakespeare. I go to see Shakespeare's. I'm drawn to the things, like I'm working on it without knowing that. When Midsummer Night Dream comes up at UWA when I'm doing my literature and arts degree before I went to NIDA, I'm like, I want to audition for that play. Whereas a lot of people would have gone, Shakespeare, right? I want to audition for that other modern. So I think the thing is you end up working towards it, right? On some level. And because you read it and you go and see it and you do some amateur plays in it, then perhaps, absolutely, you're more set to be good when you go for an audition for it.
I agree. It's just working with, once you've set a goal, and even I don't do that much goal setting.
I don't either. Now I'm thinking I really need to get a diary again.
Exactly.
30 years have passed, it's time. No, 40. Oh, God.
You're going to write, I'm going to win all the comedy awards, all the drama awards.
The actor awards will get 4.
Yeah. 4. You put it out there. You've done your
comedy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How I see it is exactly like you. You're just setting yourself a goal. And then, you do the work anyway, but your subconscious, we don't understand our subconscious well enough, but it's pointing you in the right direction. We've got a lot of offline habits. For example, when we're driving, we don't even know that we're really driving. That's but, you set the goal to go from A to B. So, I love that as well. So is that crazy when you looked back at the diary?
Yeah, because I couldn't remember it. And obviously I'd done whatever, and there's my lovely sister who lives back in Perth, and because when my mum and dad broke up and the family house was sold a long time ago, she got this kind of trunk that belonged to a great-great-grandmother, and it's got my shit in it in my poor sister's house. And I'm always and then I went home one day and I was at her house and I kind of opened it. It was like, oh my gosh, this is my old crap and love letters from my first boyfriend. And then when I opened it up, I went, diary. And as I said, I'd keep one for 3 days. And then 9 years later, I'd write something in it because my brain no doubt runs towards the ADHD and I get super bored. And in that diary, I found, that bit of information. And this is after I'd done both of them, maybe 5 years out of drama school. And I went, oh, wow. And and it's so easy to get hijacked in this industry with what other people are doing. And then you go off the rails and stop thinking, what is it that I want to do actually? What do I enjoy? And what do I actually think I'll be good at? Right? Having a talent for your talent. Because I could wish all the time I was on Baywatch, right? I could go, gosh, I want to be on Baywatch. But unless I looked like someone, Baywatch is so old now, but unless I looked like someone who was going to be on Baywatch, right? Which was a particular type of girl who had the tiniest waist and biggest boobs and blonde hair and probably Botox. Well, I'm not getting that goal because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
But it was realistic, I guess, that a girl from where I came from with no, no one in my family was in the arts. I didn't have anyone go, I know so-and-so, or, and I didn't get, none of that happened. But I guess there was a realistic, idea that one could get in a theatre company if one auditioned with everybody else and you were right for the part. And that's the other thing. Had I gone, I want to play Juliet. I'm not who people would cast as Juliet, but I just so happened to be. So it's also the luck and opportunity of that role which is Beatrice, which is the one I'd be playing.
Also,
right?
like on the like unrealistic, like you've been like a game changer in that sense, where it might not be realistic at the time, but like through your work and what you put in, it can change and evolve. So.
Yes, and that's also that's exactly right. To be honest, so in the end, because I didn't, look, I've been very lucky and I've worked really hard. And what is it? The fortunate thing of all those things conspiring to mean that I was enough of the right look to be getting opportunities, right? In terms of television and film.
Yep.
And also I think I'm built for theatre in the sense that I'm like an ever-ready battery. So I'm not going to get to Thursday night and go, I'm a little tired to do this. That's never going to happen for me, right?
Yeah,
so I guess, if you hire me, I'm coming in and I'm going to do every performance.
I love that.
I'm not going to need a little nap, right?
Yeah.
And then on screen, that can actually that's a good thing as long as you're not busy. So I actually had an amazing acting coach, and the first job I ever got, which was screen, was a show called Out There. And it was an American co-pro made by the people who make Sesame Street.
Oh, wow.
And they made Sesame Street so that the impoverished children, right, often African-American children, could learn the alphabet. Because they had didn't have dads. They had mums who worked like 7 jobs, and so they were left home to be babysat by television. And the Sesame Street workshop people went, these kids need to learn to spell, right, and read. So they also still make shows. Like they made one of the first, I hope I'm not speaking out of thingy, but I think one of the first Arabic shows with a girl in the lead. Like they do a lot of that. And I believe that's what it was at the time. They also made this show called Out There, which was an English kid, an American kid, and an Aussie kid all come to Australia. And it's all about how kids are the same no matter where they are, right?
Oh, that's a nice message.
I played the lead. I played an American vet. I was 24 and I auditioned for this lead woman who was like the lead adult in the kids show. And it was a great show. But oh gosh, where am I going? I knew I'd lose the thread. We were talking about, acting coach. So I get there and the kids have an acting coach. The kids were like 16, 17, playing 14, 15.
Yeah.
And the acting coach was on there for them. And it was my first film job outside of NIDA. And so I just went up to her and said, hello. And she's about 5'2". She's like was the most extraordinary woman. She's sadly now in a home and she's got a form of dementia. But she came up to me and I was like, hi, you seem great. Look, I've never done screen before because we'd get 2 weeks at the end of a 3-year course at NIDA where you'd go and do 2 weeks of screen. It's crazy. But at the time, screen wasn't a thing. Yep. And I said, if you have any tips for me, I'd love to hear them because I don't know about screen. And she went, what's all the shit you do with your face? And that is my kind of woman. Like oh my god, her name was Annie Swan. She's was a phenomenal teacher. She'd learnt with Stella Adler in America. Larry Moss, who's one of our biggest like acting coaches in the world, he learned from the same like kind of tradition from Stella Adler, and he said that she was kind of one of the only people in Australia at that stage, like 10, 20 years ago, working in the same vein the Americans were. And so she'd make everyone go to America. She'd be like, get out of this Mickey Mouse town. It's a hobby here. If you want to really do something, get out. Like she was very inspiring and tough. And I was like, what do you mean this shit I do with my face? And my face is moving everywhere. And she's like, if you don't learn to be still in life, you'll never be still on screen.
Whoa.
And so she was someone
that's
after
powerful.
I'd done, well, that's the thing. And this is what's interesting. After 3 years at NIDA, there's absolutely things I learned. I mean, my voice people, Betty and Bill were phenomenal voice teachers. And every day you're doing 1 to 2 hours of breathing. And then it becomes a muscular habit. So you can stand on a stage when at that stage there was no microphone and you stood at the drama theatre and you had to hit the back wall with what you were saying. You learnt that stuff. And there was a lot. Keith Bain is one of the most incredible. He was a movement teacher, and he's who Strictly Ballroom was based on. Like he was there when Baz was there, and Baz wrote that about him. So there was incredible teachers there. It's just the culture was a bit oppressive, and it was that time when you tell people they're a bit crap in order to make them better. And I think a lot of women don't work well that way.
I don't either.
No, exactly. And I think certainly at that stage, the kind of guy who was a bit of a like rebel jerk, I get drunk, I don't care. When someone's telling them their shit, then they're just going to go, I don't care what you say, and maybe take the note, but not die from the note.
Yeah.
Whereas I think most of the women were like, what? What do you think? What do you mean I can't act? What are you saying? I don't, what? And for me, it's so much better to be like, these are your strengths, but these are your growth areas. And I'm very honest, and she was too. So even what's the shit you do with your face was like, that's I can work on that.
Yeah.
Because she's like, in theatre, your big old face is going to read really well to 300 people. In this screen, it's here, and you're going, whatever you're doing, you don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so true. So the cool thing was, like, for the next year, I just literally practiced being still in my life. So if you'd met me at that time, I'd be teaching and I'd be like, and then I'd just breathe and I'd be like, hey guys, so I just need you to sit on the floor and do whatever. And I'd be thinking in my head, this doesn't even seem like me. I feel like I'm trying to be something I'm not. But all it was getting rid of was whatever that white noise is that exists in me as a human. Yeah. And it meant that after a year of practicing, I now by and large can just do it on screen whenever I need. Yeah.
And can you apply it in life as well?
Oh, I guess I could. I'm trying now. How's it going?
I think you're doing great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. No, I do have to think about it. I do think about it, right?
Whereas knowing that you can get into it probably very quickly once you...
Well, yeah, because you just have to practice things. And that became a cornerstone of my teaching, is like, if you don't confront things in life, if you've never, when someone grabbed your ass, said, hey, you don't touch my ass, you're not going to be able to confront on screen. You're not suddenly as an actor going to be able to, in that scene, go slap the guy's face. You're going to feel weird about it. It's not going to feel authentic. And because I coached on Home and Away for the last 11 years, when we're working with lots of, dramatic situations, you find you're kind of working, and I'm working one-on-one with people. You're just kind of going, you're getting to know someone and going, okay, this is a growth area in your acting, right? But it's also a growth area in your life because you are your instrument.
Yeah, and you've spoken about this as well, like being from the teaching and the coaching side, that your life is actually just as important or more important than your acting. Yeah.
And the hope is that you do enough, that the work you do on yourself, or to know yourself, right, is going to be good no matter where you end up. Because not everyone and / most people aren't going to end up staying in the acting industry. It's just not, it can't handle all of us. Right? It's just there's not enough work.
Yeah, small numbers.
Small industry, small numbers, and to earn a living, which one needs to in this capitalist society. At some point, a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I'm out. And so many of those people are happier for it, are, able to live their life better, and that, they choose to put their creativity somewhere else.
Yeah. And whatever works for them. You've also said that some of the best actors aren't in the industry, which blows my mind as well.
Always. Yeah, like that thing about being good at drama school is often drama school, in a weird way, certainly at NIDA, there was some part of it that is, and probably every drama school, maybe, I don't know, is like, it's like they need to cast the next 3 years of plays. So it felt like there was a type that you were, and you'd look at second year and third year and go, oh, that's my type. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Now, I'm not saying they sat down consciously to do it, but I am saying if you've got someone who's a very leading lady, pizzazzy, whatever, and then a second one comes and you've got a choice between the person who seems identical to Jen Hegney and someone who's quieter and blonder and whatever is going to fill a different role when you do whatever play, then you probably end up choosing them. And that doesn't mean I don't believe there was an exact science, and I'm sure someone will refute it. But in general, it's almost like you're casting a team of players for 3 years, right? So some of the best actors I know were incredible at playing so many different people, right? And in fact, my husband, who was at Whopper, got a real reputation. He's a phenomenal actor of playing a guy called Dodge in a show called Buried Child, and it's a man who's supposed to be 70 and sits in a wheelchair for most of the play. And everyone was like, it was like watching a 70-year-old man in a right, but he looked 12 and he was only like 21, 2 at the time. So his work at transforming was incredible. And we had a number of people at NIDA that you were like, I can't believe you really seemed like a 9-year-old Irish girl. And then in this show, you seemed like a grandmother who was 70. Like, I don't know how you're doing it, but that's not necessarily easily castable when you get out in the industry. Because if your type isn't the type the industry needs, you may well get something, but also if you can do a lot of things, you're not easily put in the, for want of a better word, pigeonhole or the lane that you need to be in, right?
It's very interesting. I've spoken with a lot, especially the Americans, of how, they might do the same role, but like variations of it. And they're being told they're like that. And like, but I went to theatre, I can do this. And like, nah, this is how we see you. And sometimes the casting people, the producers, whoever, aren't very creative. They can't see.
No, and they're scared because millions of dollars are, so again, what's quite good about getting old is both things can be true. That no one wants to take risk. You've got certainly casting agents that like certain people. That's the truth. And so they want to get those people in because they want to get those people's jobs, whether they just like the person's style, whether the person's got a job before so they know they're marketable, whether or not they're best friends with that person, and same with producers and same with directors. If my husband's worked with someone on one show and loved them, then the next time they audition, he's got the love in his heart, hasn't he? He's going,
you've worked with them.
I've worked with them. I know they perform. Yeah. Plus, now they've got a credit. It's easier to get them over the line, right? So there's that truth. And there's also kind of what the industry wants at the time, right? So you can be getting 6 or 7 jobs in a row and because you are a white man of an age or whatever, and then the industry flips and goes, you know what, we need more diversity in our shows, so that you're suddenly not going to be up there in the final 2 to be picked from. So no matter who likes you, it's going to be harder to get you over the line.
Yeah, it's a very tricky. Like I completely get it. I do the same. I've got my shows. I would want to work with certain people. Yes. And that's not a go at anyone else. It's like you want to work with your friends and people you trust.
That's exactly right. And that can be super frustrating, evidently, when you're outside what you feel like the clique is.
Oh yeah,
and yet it makes so much more sense when you get to a certain point in your career that your friend or your husband directed a show. You're right for a part. Like my husband directed, Colin From Accounts, 4 of the episodes. Right. I knew Trent from stuff I'd done with Jungle. Pat was the best man at my wedding. He's been a friend since we were 19. Harry I knew through Pat. They're together. And it's just like Kirsty McGregor, who's the casting agent. She also knows me from other work. So suddenly you're a team of people who know you. And I mean, I have to give props to Kirsty, which I would have done in the speech that I didn't write for the actor, is that Kirsty was the one who suggested me for Chiara because Pat and Harry saw me as Yvette the Vet, that beautiful Annie Manor ended up playing so perfectly. But they were like, yeah, no, we thought of her for that. But Kirsty went, well, she is Chiara. Like, you've written Jen Hegney. And they went, well, have we? That didn't occur. It just didn't occur to them. And then my husband, who was there at the time talking about casting, said, well, actually, Jen Hegney's read the scripts and she also thinks she should be Chiara. Because I'd read it and he'd said, oh, look, they're thinking of you for Yvette the Vet. But I was reading them with him because sometimes he likes to hear it aloud. And I was like, Yvette the Vet? No, I'm Chiara. And he went, well, they haven't. So luckily she said that because even though they're my mates, that was because they thought of me for the other role, they didn't think of me for Chiara. And then suddenly Pat and Harry went home, they didn't. They went home, they came back the next day and went, oh, yeah, it totally could be Jen.
But that's also a credit to you as well because, even if someone's your friend doesn't mean you're just going to get a role. Like you obviously have to be good. You've been doing it for a while. You've been working with them. I'm not going to cast a friend just because they're a friend.
You want to cast them because they're right.
Exactly.
But there's nothing better than working with your friends because usually they've got your sense of humor. And I do think I know that is part of the fabric of the show that makes it successful.
And I'm in magical land, I've got like 10 scripts ready to go. But with the comedy ones, that would be so specific because not everyone's going to get, it's like one's like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Not everyone likes that show and that's fine. No. And if someone doesn't like that show, you're probably not the right fit. Doesn't mean you're not a good fit for another show. But
and comedy has so many, and that's the other thing that's hard about comedy that people I don't think often don't respect. I mean, America evidently does, like the amount of money comedians get in America to be funny, right? But if you can be good in, there are so many different brands of comedy and there is one brand of drama.
Yeah.
There is you be in a drama, you're in a drama. There isn't good, you could be good or bad in a drama, right? But drama there's melodrama, which is a whole different thing, There's soap, and not even home and away soap, because that's still played as a drama. But if you're in As the World Turns and you're like, oh, Joey, I thought you loved me. But that's a brand of melodrama too, right? Yeah. So you'd call it soap acting, but really it's just it's like drama on crack.
Yeah.
And you don't quite buy it, but that's the fun of it. And actually probably reality telly weirdly sits in that. You feel like you can just, right? But drama, whether you're going to be in How to Make Gravy or you get a big feature film, right? Like, or you're in just like dramatic acting is either true or it's not, right? And you can push scale, like Tonya had kind of like Margot Robbie plays scale, but that was probably had more comedic elements, right? Whereas comedy, are you in a farce, right? Are you in a full naturalism? Are you in documentary style? Are you in a sitcom? Are you like, that's what's tricky about it, is that are you in It's Sunny in Philadelphia, or are you in Fawlty Towers?
Yeah.
Are you in The Office, or are you in Parks and Rec? Because they're not the same.
Completely. It blew my mind. I'm so embarrassed I'm bringing this up, but I don't know if
No.
you've ever seen like the scary movies or like
yeah, I've seen them in the past, like a million years ago.
or like the spoofs of like 20
Yes.
different movies.
Yeah.
I had one guest on and he played one of the leads in like the 40-Year-Old Virgin who did and it's a horrific movie and he knows it. I'm like,
Right.
how, like the way that you're acting in that film, you couldn't act like, not here, but you can't act like
One
that in any
can't.
other. It's like
No.
you have to act very specifically, and
For
it's
that.
so bizarre. And it would
Yeah.
not work for anything
No.
else. It's like they know they're in a terrible movie as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that? But see, yeah, I think that is, no, I know that to be true, is that comedy is so very specific. And sometimes you don't know, which is the hard, like confusing thing for, even me or whatever, auditioning for an American comedy is sometimes like, how far do they want me to push this?
Yeah. And that's hard because you don't get that much information.
No,
as well.
we never get that much information. So you just kind of have to give it a nudge. And for me, it's always like, it's got to be in truth, right? But then you've got to have funny bones.
Yeah.
So you've got to play the truth of the situation. Yeah. And hope that your funny bones get through. But then sometimes you watch the end result and go, oh, no wonder I didn't get a recall for that. That is so different from how I thought it was supposed to be.
I would like, and I'm not in this space whatsoever, I'd like to get into acting. I've already done like very, very, very minor roles, but I would like them to say the humor is like this, or we want it to be fast, or like I actually write sometimes with my friends, this is a fast pace. Like I know you can't do that, but
no, but you
changes.
can. No, you can, and you should. I think you absolutely should. No, we write that all. Yeah, like when we've written our plays, my friend and I, we just write, this is a fast-paced play with a lot of cut-offs, and this is the way it should move. I think you absolutely, absolutely should do that.
I know
to explain,
but there's like certain rules when you're showing it to a producer. There's like rules. This is what a screenplay has to look, and I'm like,
yeah, but I'd say rules are meant to be broken.
Okay,
that's what I'd say to you about that. Well, no, that's true because everybody's different. Like, it's so interesting because, for instance, the lookbook or the Bible, right, that you might have to make nowadays to go with your film or
is
TV,
that the TV
show.
Bible?
Yeah, sorry, not the God's Bible, not the Word of the God.
I've got quite a few TV Bibles.
Good. So
they are brutal.
They were only invented so that people who were showrunners and had to leave had something to give the next showrunner. Okay. So your Bible was made, and that's now, I mean, and I'm not even that old, and I don't even know why I know this. I think I know it because someone talked to me about it at one point years ago, is that it's impossible actually to make a Bible of a show that doesn't exist. We all do it. We all have to do it, but it doesn't exist yet. Right? So you're going, this is what we're hoping it's like. And you're getting pictures of like, oh, it's sort of a bit like better things with what's her face. And it's sort of a bit like it's a blamage of this and this. And imagine the, comedies of Tina Fey and whatever, but with more pathos, a bit more like extras. You're just trying to pull out of your ass, quite frankly, what you think the show should be. Well, that's right. But in the past, it would be judged off the script. You would be getting a script and going, and the person who read the script would understand whether it worked or not.
Yeah.
Without having to be told necessarily. And now, maybe it's better because you can actually put in the heads of the people reading what it is it needs to be. But it's actually quite a hard and impossible task to kind of go, this is what my show's going to be when you haven't made the show. And quite frankly, say Seinfeld, I guess that would have come at the time. There was no Bible yet. So he makes the show. The first season is quite a flop and it didn't get numbers and no one knew what it was yet. And they were going to cancel it. And then in finding what it was, second season and on, it's like it becomes the greatest show on earth. Yeah. Whereas it's less like that with drama. You hit the ground running often because drama's drama, right? You've got a scary guy called Tony Soprano. If we all play this true, it's going to be what it's going to be. And you can absolutely get tone, like The Bear, you can get the tone, but then they're calling that a comedy, aren't they? But you can actually get we're going to look at tone in terms of how it looks. Like we're going to shoot at Moody, or Mayor of Easttown looks different from Mad Men, looks different from, like, okay, Mad Men we want to cover in certain ways because it's the 1950s. It's a more traditional shooting style.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to Hurt Locker, we're going to shoot it like Paul Greengrass, like it's going to go crazy. And that's going to create a style. But if you stopped and went, let's shoot, I don't know, Hurt Locker like Mad Men, the acting in it would be of a similar,
I know.
right? Whereas comedy, different.
So with TV Bibles, for people that don't know, I kind of say like a dummy's guide to what this show's supposed to be.
Yes.
And I've spoken about this before, and I think I may have briefly mentioned to you last time, where I won an award for one of my scripts, and I had a production TV developmental deal, so I was showing them all my
stuff.
And I remember my dad, and my dad has no idea, but he's lovely. He's like,
yeah,
you couldn't really answer that bit. I'm like, it's not actually possible for me to tell you exactly some of these questions. I know my script inside out. I know the characters inside out. I know what the tone, but I need to see it. I've got a season outline. I can't tell you exactly each point because you need to grow with the characters and learn, like you said with Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I know what each episode's going to be. There's no way what I have on that piece of paper is going to
end up.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to end up as that because you're exactly right. It's a movable feast writing. And yes, and it's going to move with who you hire in the role. Yeah. And, and every workshop that goes on, you start to find out what it is. It's like you're carving, aren't you? You're carving marble without knowing what you're going for. And then at one point you're like, something appears. And you're like, oh, that's it. Like I knew I was making a figure, but I didn't exactly know that it was a horse.
Exactly. And
right? I thought it might be a donkey or a camel. Now it's a horse. Oh, but I only knew that because I wrote it. And writing really is rewriting.
Yeah.
That's what I know to be true. I mean, maybe unless you're Aaron Sorkin, but even he probably. I don't know.
Yeah, he's
I don't actually know what he is. Exactly. His first script was A Few Good Men.
Was that his first one?
Yeah, so apparently...
He's got talent.
Oh, well, yeah. But it's his first script, but who knows how long he worked on that script, right? And how he works, I don't know. But my husband was saying, come and listen to, and it was him speaking because they said, what's your advice to young writers? And he's like, I don't know what to say because my first script was A Few Good Men.
He's like, I'm just really good.
Oh, well, that was my first line. And then someone read it and then went, oh my gosh, let's make it a TV film. And he said, I now realize how arrogant I was because I said I want it to be a play first. So the film producers went, okay, mate, we'll make it a play then, and then we'll make it a film. And so he goes, yeah, we'll do your play thing and earn $5. And then we will do it as a film and we'll make it $1 trillion or whatever. Yeah. So, but in general, I'd say writing is rewriting.
Agreed. And also, last thing on the TV Bible, it's actually really helpful because it gets you to think what a season could be, what the characters will be. And then it forces you to consider another episode because often you just write the pilot and then hope you can.
Absolutely. That is true. It does a lot of groundwork that you have to do anyway at some point.
Yeah. And it's important. Then you have clarity and then you can explain it and talk about it better.
Yeah. And themes and all that. I think you're right.
Yeah. And it's also weird because as a writer, you think you just write, but now you're doing like basically a business document on top of the writing. You're like,
that's exactly right. And that's what it was. It was a business document to hand over to the next person to say, this is how we make the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that's true. I read it somewhere. It made such sense at the time. It was like, how does this thing, and I don't know. We may Google that and find out that
people feel free to.
But I feel free.
You mentioned I want to tap a few points. There's a lot of things, which is really exciting. But you mentioned that you spoke to that lady who gave you that advice and she's like, just move to America. It's a hobby here. And then you mentioned earlier, was that, and now with Colin From Accounts, is that and you said your husband's working overseas.
Oh, he's working overseas. Do you know what? Look, I ended up going to pilot season on 3 occasions, I think. And when I came out of drama school, and then into the early 2000s, pilot season was literally a season. And it was 6 weeks long, and 100 shows were auditioned-ish. And of that, there'd be like 10 shows for NBC got pilots and 1 or 2 would be picked up. So the hope was you got a pilot and then that your pilot that you shot was the 2 out of the 8 or whatever, or the 1 out of the 5.
Crazy. That's
so
scary.
It was kind of scary and amazing. And it meant, though, that you could just live at home and go for those 6 weeks and still get a taste of what it would be like to be in America. And I did that 3 times and I had an extraordinarily excellent time. I actually did. It's so funny because I was 31 and I think I got there and I said to my husband, I'm all washed up because I'd I'd had three, it's so funny. I'd had three big jobs in Australia that I kind of got down to the last one or two for, didn't get them. And they kind of went to people who were already famous and smaller and blonder than me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to America with nothing. Because in those days as well, it was like, get a telly show, get covers on magazines, da-da-da. And I just went, I'm 31. Like, if I don't go now. And luckily, I happened to get a manager in New York who really cared that I'd gone to NIDA, who'd really cared I did Bell Shakespeare, which is very unusual. And had I gone to LA and got, like, I had meetings in LA, but I went to New York first. Yep. Got this really great manager and ended up being with her for, say, 4 or 5 years until she went to become a UNICEF worker. That's how nice she was.
Wow.
This is very unusual for an agent.
That is, but
I had, that was mental. She left, and that she left as I got a job. I always did want an American comedy. So in my head was, if you ask what was in my head, as I went through the industry, I suddenly went, you know what? I'd love to do an American comedy. Like, I think I could. I think my accent's good. I look on the shows and I go, I mean, I'm not Julia Louis-Dreyfus at all, but I could be that type. I could be a Tina Fey. I was kind of like, I could do that. I could see myself. So weirdly, that probably was a goal, right? Again, I never wrote it on a bit of paper, but I was like, I could do that. And so weirdly, in Australia, they just started towards the end of, so I had my kid in 2014, so towards the 2010s, that American people started to do shows here. And so Rachel Griffith agreed to do a show called Camp, which was an American comedy. And I ended up getting that American comedy. And it was around the same time my agent was quitting. So she called and went, Genevieve, I'm so glad, like, it happened. You got your thing and you didn't even have to leave Australia. And I was like, I know, I'm going to Queensland to shoot this show that I started off with one scene. And I found out later, that I'd gone for the lead and they really liked me a lot. And they, and Rachel Griffith got it. Of course she did. She's phenomenal. And, so she got it, but they really liked me. So offered me a tiny part. It was 2 scenes, but they were American and they were funny. Like, it was a funny little monologue I had about being at family camp. I think it was something like, my kid comes up and she goes, Mommy, they're failing at tetherball or something. And I go, okay. Oh, no, first of all, I say, oh, my God, I met Christopher Hitchens, who is an atheist. And I'm like, I say something like, I had an affair with Christopher Hitchens once. He was an asshole, but he had a tongue like Gene Simmons. I swear to God. And then the kid comes in and I go away. And then I go, I swear to God, it had a battery in it. And then I'm like, I used to be a real slut in my 20s. And now I'm at family camp, right? So it was really funny. And I thought, it doesn't matter that I have 2 scenes. If I get to say those lines, they're brilliant. Yeah. So I agreed. And my agent was interesting because she was like, do you want to take it? They're offering good money because they know it's tiny. And often in Australia, and I did this with Dr. My very good friend Tony Mack wrote it, and Claudia Carvin, who I knew very well, was producing it. And I didn't get a lead on it, but they offered me a small role, tiny role, 1 scene, 2 scenes. And I actually said no to my very good friend, like, he's one of my besties, because I wrote an email going, thank you, but I'm going to hold out because I think this will go extra seasons and I don't want to miss out on a better role. And it did go extra seasons and I got a much better role. Right? So I will absolutely do that, because in a TV show called Rake, I got recalled and close to like a role, or at least recalled. And then I got offered a tiny role. I took it and it went for 6 seasons. And I was like, I can't believe I took 1 scene. So it's quite hard, because when you're starting out. So when I got that show, my agent kind of quit, and I was like, I was pregnant, and I literally was pregnant at the end of the show when she told me. So I just let go of the America thing, because I went, I'm about to have a baby. I'm 38 years old. If America comes tapping again, I will absolutely do it. But there's no point now, because I'm not getting up I'm not going to run over to America while I have a child who's young, or I'm pregnant. So I absolutely wanted to be part of it. I do think I have. And when I went there for meetings, people were like, your energy is so American. And it actually is. Like, here, I was always too much. I'm too full on. People are like, whoa, and do that face a lot to me.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I'm a lot. I really am. And I'm 49 and a lot. Imagine me at 22. Like, but then I'd look at America, and I'm not saying at all I'm Robin Williams or a Russell Brand type or whatever, but the energy I have, like, it matched more what was happening overseas than it was here in the most laid back land in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I loved going there. I loved the idea that you got chunky auditions. And I loved more than anything, I think, that here I was seen because of how I looked, right, which wasn't a size, say, 6 blonde person. I had dark hair then, and people were like, are you Greek, Italian? I'm like 5'7.5". I'm probably a size 10 to 12, which is normal and /thin. But in telly world, it actually looks big. right? Yeah.
Really?
Oh, absolutely it did then. Absolutely.
Oh, then
People are size 4, 6s. Well, even still, so many of, you go to Home and Away and you look, or you go to television sets, and a lot of people are very thin and very small, like they're not robust. And anyway, I couldn't really see myself in Australian television that much. I was always a prostitute, like a lot of prostitutes. I'd be like a character actor sort of thing. Like I wasn't seen as a lead, but I went over there and they would look at me like big casting agents going, right, you're so leading lady. And I'd be like, yeah. And they're like, so you must play a lot of leads. I'm like, well, yeah,
like all of them.
I played a lot of leads in theatre, right?
Yep.
But I wasn't getting approved at network to be leads. And that's just like there aren't any roles. And the type of person, by and large, was a particular type of person. And now that has actually extended a whole lot. Nice. But back then it really, even me, and I was lucky enough to actually look pretty Aussie, whatever that means, right? And I was lucky enough to be, I've got a good physique, or I don't, whatever the thing is that gets you there, but I still wasn't the type.
Yeah.
And really, and like blonde and like kind of very see-through skin and all that was the type. And there were the odd outlier. But if you're looking at how many actresses got jobs, it would honestly be like 1 in 10 were women. So when we were at NIDA, we had more men than women in our year. There'd be a play, there'd be 1 or 2 women and 6 or 7 men, right? And then all the kind of work that was coming out, we must have had 6, 7 in 10 years, 8 war shows. The Pacific was shot here. They do Gallipoli again. They do another. So that's like gives men, so many jobs. There'd be an underbelly, which would absolutely have 40 men in roles and 1 or 2 women, right? Yeah. And that and aside from a few things like McLeod's Daughters, like you can really think of what they were, who had 3 female leads, but they all had boyfriends and then they had a dad. Like it's not like then they only had women in them.
Yeah.
So there wasn't. So when I went to America, I absolutely loved it, but it was like, I didn't have a green card and I was applying for like a visa to be able to, they're called an O1, to be able to stay there. But that was just going to cost money and take time because I didn't have like a big movie to go off the back of or lots of magazine covers. So I just was not willing to just camp out and wait for years like my friends did, because by then I could get a Bell Shakespeare job. I could get an ad for 20 grand and then go and take that to America for the 6 weeks and do the thing. But after that period, if I wasn't getting anything, I'd be like, I'd prefer to go home and make this other thing. Yeah. So that was a real, and I don't know that me staying would have got me a job there. I just know that I got good feedback and traction. It's just, you really have to want it. And in those days, you really, really had to want it because you weren't sending tapes. You had to be there in the room.
Oh, yeah, that would have been so much all the time.
Yeah, and so I had I had a number of friends, mainly, to be honest, guys of a certain look, who were kind of handsome, white, 6-foot-ish guys who actually really made a good stab of it and stayed there and lived for 10 years and worked, in enough shows that they could survive there because it was paid so well. But then most other people I know kind of left after a number of years or were really lost the career they had here.
It's very tricky.
Oh, it's so hard.
What's your relationship with this? Because I've had so many people talk about, they were in the run for like 1 or 2 people to play the lead of like 10 different shows, and you've had so many situations like that.
Closies, yeah.
Yeah, so because you don't, it's amazing to be one of the last few to potentially get a role, but it doesn't pay the roles. It doesn't get you on screen for that role.
No.
How do you put it into perspective?
I think you just get old, and if you do the work on yourself, so. It's really hard early on, I think, in life in general to not get attached to hopes and ideas. Definitely. And I think if you do enough work on yourself, and that's like therapy, and that's like reading the wise people's texts, and it's like getting, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and listening to Super Soul Conversations with Oprah Winfrey, and reading Maya Angelou. Like all these things sound kind of trite and again a bit like The Secret, but there are people with real wisdom, right? Yeah. And Buddhism, like I for a year or so there in there, like would go to like, you drop in Buddhism class just to be like, how do I stop feeling like it's so unfair? Like, and slowly, I think over time, you just go, I do believe, and I was saying this on another podcast, actually, like the tenets of Buddhism, which are, the good bits, whatever, like I'm sure there's terrible things going on, but the bits that are like, you be present and you do the audition, right? And you do it to your best. But then when you walk away, like the sand mandala that the Buddhists kind of put out in the sand. They spend all these hours making this thing, and then they just walk away and it blows out into you've got to see for me, each bit is separate. So I no longer, psychologically, I do not think of myself as an actor. I think of myself as an auditioner. And if the audition is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
The audition is my chance to play the character. That's it. I get 4 minutes, 3 minutes, it depends, 3 scenes, 2 scenes to play the part of XYZ. So I pretend I'm in that show. And if I'm in that show, that's what I got to do. I got to do those 3 scenes. Now, I did get paid for them, but there was years and years I never got paid for things because I just wanted to do them. If you think of it that way, then at least when you walk away, you're not hoping that something comes of it, because the bit that comes of it, that is like, number 1, the show falls over. Number 2, they cut that character. Number 3, you were never up for that role because Rose Byrne was just waiting to say yes. Like, that happens. It absolutely happens.
Oh, yeah.
When you later on hear how close things were or far they were, or, or that the show that everyone's attached to just fell over anyway, then there's so much that can go wrong, right? And then you get to this top area especially with Australia, where you need a network approval. And if you haven't worked for that network, or if that network, one person or whoever is up there, a couple of people, doesn't like the look of your necklace, there's a lot of things that don't have anything to do with whether you'd be good for the role, whether you did a phenomenal audition, whether the director likes you, whether everyone who's worked with you before, it doesn't matter. Well, there's so many things out of your control that all you can do is go, I was asked to put down for this. And that means that's a win, because whoever asked me, whether it's the director or the casting agent, they must like me enough. Nobody's doing me any favors in this world, because I'm not Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
I don't come with anything. So I guess I'm being asked because they think I could get it, or I'm going for it because some star who's my age has not said yes yet. And that happens a lot, because that star might not say yes, and then someone else might get a go. But then if I'm holding on to gosh, I hope I get this role, when actually someone else has got earmarked for it that I can't do anything about, then the hope is it's a bit useless. And then also you can't take it personally then when you don't get it, because there are just so many factors that have nothing to do with whether you were right or good or did a good audition.
We've heard you could be too small, too tall, your eye color.
I'm talking necklaces. I'm talking people saying, I don't like a necklace. And people go, we could get her to do the recall without it. No, I don't like it. It's do you know? This is the truth. It's absolutely the truth. That there's so many things that, so I think it's about, in the Buddhist style, not being attached to the result of it. It's about understanding that, yes, you're a professional auditioner. That's what you are. And then there's also this thing called a job that is really separate from whether that audition works or not. And I think then that's that's part of how I've survived. And then the other thing is knowing so much about the rest of the industry that you start becoming one of those people who wants to get a play up, and you end up wanting people in it, because you know them, you know their work, they work hard, they're really good people, and they fit the role. Well, why wouldn't I want you, rather than to audition 20 other people who also could fit the role when I don't know who they are?
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
That's a really good perspective. And on top of what you said as well, not only just being in industry and understanding the game, but also the work on yourself, because that's what carries forward. Brilliant advice.
Well, it keeps you sane.
Oh,
Because if you ever think it's fair, if you get to every point where you go, gosh, I think this is based on some kind of fairness, then you're going to go insane.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, because it's a very bizarre industry at the best of times.
Yeah. And it's not quantifiable.
Yeah. It's not like
if it was, no, it's not like accounts where you added the numbers wrong, mate. Or you're an IT expert. Did you fix the computer? No. Catcher, you can't do your job. We've seen people constantly not do their job well that get on, because it's not life and death, right?
Yeah.
If you're just kind of a bit shit in the show, then nobody dies. The show might die, but then everyone's a bit like, oh, I wonder why that was. It could have been any number of things that made it die, right?
Yeah.
So you can't pinpoint it was just that actor. And even, it's kind of very odd as well to be this age, and certain people that you're like, whoa, they were not a great actor, who just got opportunity after opportunity. And then, 5 years, 10 years down the track, you're like, bloody hell, they're good now. But the ones that you go, you were astonishing back then. Imagine if you'd had 7 opportunities. We would literally be with like a new Meryl Streep. Like, you know that, but you think, well, I've seen what can happen. And it's not, often doesn't make sense, and it makes sense to somebody.
Yeah, not necessarily that.
But not necessarily you.
That's very interesting. And you said this at the very start of the podcast, and it's been screaming at the back of my head.
Oh, okay. Ask. Oh, yeah.
No. It's really important. It ties into exactly with what you're saying. You know, we spoke about how you were doing NADA and you got a bit of work very quickly afterwards, which is crazy. But then you said, also in another interview, that I got hijacked from everyone's story.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd love to know about that, because you're doing well, and then, you know, comparison comes in, imposter syndrome comes in.
Yes, it's this thing that is the absolute truth. Like, comparison is certain death. It just absolutely is. Because there's always someone who's better off than you. And when you see people working at a high level, that you go, oh my gosh, if I had that show and I was earning, let's say back in the day, $1 million an episode on a show or whatever, and you've got a friend who's like, oh, I just wish I was on that show. It's so boring, my show. You're like, you're working every day as an actor. You're being paid like whatever, 100,000, 200,000, $1 million, and you're still wishing you were Brad Pitt. Right. And then there's Brad Pitt living as Brad Pitt. And at some point he's probably wishing, well, certainly when he was doing good looking roles, he was just going, wish someone would let me be a character actor because I'm so sick. Everyone just thinks I'm pretty.
Yeah.
Right. Then he'll get to a point where he's old enough, not ugly, that's the wrong word, but old enough or wizened enough to do something other than just I'm pretty. And then no doubt, you know, Jacob Elordi comes along and he goes, oh, he's now, you know, there's always someone to look to the end. If you do get easy runs a lot, you often don't have to work on your humanity. So then you just see these people's lives implode. Let's say, I don't know Brad Pitt at all, and I don't know anything that is or isn't true. But then it ends up he's having a breakup and all his families apart from him. And by his thing is, he's like, I drank too much and I did this too much, and I do wish that was different. Like, I wish I didn't do what I did that then caused my wife and kids not to want to be with me for this period. Would that have happened if he'd had a lot of time on his hands to do work on himself because he sat around doing nothing and had to ask, why aren't I acting? Why? Yeah. And then you go, what's wrong with me? And then you cry and then you go, oh, maybe it's not fair. And then you think, I better work on myself enough to like myself without getting the big roles.
Oh, that's so important, liking yourself. So is that what you did?
It's the biggest thing. Absolutely worked really hard to have esteem aside from my work. And when you're an artist and you are your instrument, you somehow conflate, of course you do, getting a job with being a good person. They liked me or they didn't like me. There is an absolute truth in the fact that it is a people game, right? So you are your instrument, and if they don't get on with you, right, they're not going to want to hang with you. But there'll be someone who gets on with you and doesn't get on with the other person, right? So because it's a human game, depending on who the producer is or the network or the writer will depend on whether or not someone likes to work with you, right? But that is only one part of it. And there's no point turning yourself inside out because, again, if I was going to America, I can't tell you the difference of when I stepped into America compared to when I was here in terms of how people took me, you know. And I guess if I'd been born now, someone would have gone, get that girl on the ADHD medication, right? My brain works in all sorts of ways. I'm really intense. I'm full on. I'm cracking jokes. I'm endemically cracking in a joke. Now, if I'm on Saturday Night Live, they're like, oh my God, get that girl on here.
Sign her up 10 years.
Right, sign her up. I can write, I can crack a joke, I can do a character, I can keep it going all night, I can write all night and get up the next day. In Australia, when we're trying to cast a laid-back woman in a show about sheep, I could do it. I believe I could act it, right? I believed I could be a cop. I know a lot of cops. I seem like a cop. And then they'd cast a cop who kind of had a voice like that and it was like really small. And I'd go, I don't think you're a cop, but you fit the idea of what they want as a cop on this show, right? Yeah. The network is going, we don't want a lady who's too coppish actually. But then on another show, they absolutely might have. Right. But then I go to America and so many people and the opportunities I had, which were leads in shows, recalls for big leads as like the lead in a show in a way that I wasn't kind of necessarily kind of embraced here. Right. Yeah. Or I was for a little bit. But then, it just felt like, wow, I can't believe on this scale people are meeting me going, oh, wow, you're really good. Like, you're such a leading lady, because that's what leading ladies look like there. And they're all forward. Americans are all too much, aren't they? You meet Americans who are like, hey, and you think, oh, calm down. That's how people feel about me. So if I'm there, I'm not an anomaly. I have American energy, and I don't have to try.
I think it's such a good lesson in that, like, not you, but you're not for everyone.
Yes, no one's for everyone.
And that's so important, because I can't be bothered getting into, because it'll take so long. I don't want to derail, but like Australian laid back, like we're potentially too laid back. We'll let things happen to us. We don't put our hand up and say no.
Yes, correct.
It's really important to realize that you're not for everyone, and that's great. And you can thrive in a different environment. You might not be in the right friendship group. You might be in the wrong work environment. Might be another accounting firm that fosters how you are. And that's really important.
I think it's the most important thing. And I think you were saying you have this thing, but I know 90% of women that I teach and know have that thing of like, I want people to like me. And it's like, do you want Donald Trump to like you? Do you want, do you want whatever? Do you want Peter Dutton to like you? Like, who do you want to like you?
Yeah.
Because not everyone will like you. And also, do you want that really sexist asshole to like you?
Like,
and if you say,
if
you say to him, please don't touch my ass, and he doesn't like you, is that okay? Like, so it's like, you've got to pick the people. And I think when you're older, you just, and certainly, younger, and certainly for me, got out of drama school, was just like, I hope everybody likes me. Like, turning up, hoping the casting agent liked me, it's like, and when you saw people who actually might have been given less shits, right? Or come to the industry another way, suddenly plucked out of obscurity because they were handsome or whatever, or quite frankly, not like potentially nice people, whatever that means. And you watch how they acted with the disdain, but got jobs. You were like, part of it is relaxation. And wouldn't it be good if the people who really wanted to work hard, who were really, kind, who were willing to be in a community that you needed, just liked themselves more and relaxed more? Because you can be an asshole who doesn't care, or you can be a person who's really in it for everybody, who doesn't care what you think, but cares a lot about the job. And that's where I hope I sit, is like, I really care about things being good. I really do. I really do thrive and want people to say that wasn't as good as it could have been. Like, I like rigor. I do. And that doesn't mean I always can do it for myself. Like, I don't always audition well. I'm not always good in everything. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, well, maybe Meryl or Daniel. Like, some of them, I do think there's a percentage of people who just the way their brain works, and also Americans have lots of coaches anyway, right? In this country, we don't have that culture. Right, but they have someone watching them anyway, and then often phenomenal directors, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here, sometimes our directors might have come from DOP, like they've been cinematographers, and then they've moved over, especially ad directors, to like directing people, and they don't quite know how to speak to us. But if you were a film director in America, if you're Martin Scorsese or you're P.T. Anderson or whoever you are, or in this country, like, whatever, like, how to speak to, part of why you wanted to do it was to probably speak to an actor.
Yeah. Sorry for interjecting on that. I think that's really important with the people pleasing, and we'll have to talk about this another time, in that I've also been the biggest people pleaser on the planet. Mm-hmm. And when you try and please everyone, you take a part of yourself out of it. So, actually being authentic in you. And what I'm gathering from our chat is that if you're not you, then you're not going to get roles. You're not going to thrive. Who are you being?
Or you are, but you don't like yourself. Yeah. So there's that. But because seriously, and that's that thing about people pleaser, certainly, there was a period, and I'm sure it still exists, but it certainly was harder. It certainly existed more when I was young, is that if you were a people-pleasing woman, meaning you just smiled and you shut up or whatever, you absolutely did get more work. There's no lie about that, because people who don't want to behave well don't want to be told they're not behaving well. So it's then easier to be with people. So weird part of what I believe my job is to tell people you don't have to put up with bad behavior to keep a job. Like, you shouldn't. And nowadays, it isn't Harvey Weinstein. Like, you can't get away with what Harvey got away with. But the truth of the matter was, certain women who were phenomenal actresses on their way got Academy nominations. He killed their careers because they wouldn't have sex with him. So was being nice, the idea that they would have been nice to him or nicely put him off instead of saying go fuck off, or even like having the sex, could that have progressed their career? Absolutely. So the truth is, you absolutely can get places by shutting your mouth, not standing up for yourself, not telling someone their behavior is not good enough, right? But you won't have a steam.
Yep.
And that's what then makes you enjoy the success. And I know a lot of people who swallowed their needs, people pleased, weren't authentic and said that behavior is not good, had no way to have a voice because they thought having a voice would kill their chances, and maybe it would have. So I'm not even saying that's not true.
But it's about
they don't like themselves. So then what so you got a lot of money, you got a great car, you're on the magazines, you're but you don't eat because you're controlling your life because you've got to keep thin. You've got Botox because you can't get a wrinkle because then you're not as palatable to whatever masculine look you've got on you that says youth is everything. And you hate yourself. Well, I'd say that's too high a price to pay for a career.
Agreed.
And people, and that's why I think people combust, right?
Oh,
Amy Winehouse. Well, I think absolutely. They don't know who they are, and they just keep doing this thing that gets them where they need to, but they don't like themselves.
And you can't put a price on that. Yeah.
No way can you. No.
You've said it way better than me. I also want to talk about unqualified because I feel this is like pretty much everything we're saying, but also on steroids. Tell me about this. So you wanted this to be a TV show, and then I believe they said no, and then you turned it into a play. Can you tell me? Because it looks like a lot of ups and downs and a lot of stuff.
It still continues on. So ultimately, my friend Kath Moore and I, she's my work wife. She's a fantastic actor, and we came out of drama school around the same time, ended up meeting, even though we're both from Perth. We'd kind of done the odd thing there, but didn't really know each other well. Came here, became friends, and she and I were catering at a wedding in Raby for Bogans, and I'm a Bogan, so they were Bogans. Lovely Bogans, but Bogans. And, there was a lot going on that was kind of hilarious. And halfway through the wedding, they recognised me from being on Home and Away because I had done a stint, but it airs 5 months after. So now I've run out of money and I'm serving at a wedding, and halfway through the wedding, they're like, oh my God, you're Cindy from the Rocket Club. Oh my God. And in the end, I'm signing the back of their wedding certificate, like, like good luck with your special day, like from Genevieve Hegney in brackets, Cindy from the Rocket Club. So after we finished doing that, and at the same time, my friend Kath Moore was earning money also being an aged care person. And she had a woman who was 101 and lived in a very nice affluent suburb who, accidentally was racist, and Kath's caught a Malaysian and she thought that she was trying to take like advantage of her and that she'd bombed the bridge. Like mental stuff was coming out of her mouth and Kath was having to just take it. And then her vagina fell out at one point. Like she literally prolapsed. Anyway, shit like this was happening to us. It's okay. When old people get old, the middle of their whole body falls out.
I had no idea.
This happens to women. No one cares really. So anyway, so the point is Kath's like calling people going, this 101-year-old woman, she's sitting on the toilet, something's fallen out. And they're like, oh, it's just a prolapse, put a glove on and pop it back up, right? So Kath's like popping people's vaginas back in. I'm serving people at weddings and just going, what am I doing here? And being star spotted and like, oh my God, just sitting in the and we're just going, this is so much. It's too much. It's humiliating. It's a lot. But we sort of went, oh my gosh, if this isn't a show one day. And then we came up with this idea of two people who, because ultimately we kept doing jobs we're actually not qualified to do. And so it became a show about two women each week who do jobs they're unqualified to do. And we started to write it thinking it would be a great episode of the week show, right? So week one, they're going to start small. So they're going to be caterers, but they don't know how to do anything because neither of them have ever done that before. And then they're going to be childcare workers, but they hate kids. And, they're going to be aged care and go on until they're teaching. So at the end of the first season, they're teachers at a school. Yeah. And then by second season, they're doing ever harder jobs. So that was the idea. And the most beautiful Claudia Carvin, she offered to produce us for a while. So early days, she and a woman called Jacqueline Persky, who were excellent, had a company. They were like, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. And we'd written some scripts and they felt they were really ready to pitch. But it was at the time the Comedy Channel at Foxtel was just dying. So we met them. The man was really lovely. And then he goes, yeah, this is great. But he sort of looked sad. And then a week later, he said, the channel's been killed. And we were like, oh. But also we went to ABC. We did a few like look arounds and we just didn't get traction. And that's a lot of reasons. And certainly one of them was we were two women trying to make a show at a time when really they were a bit like, two women in a show, who's going to watch that? And it was only just the beginning of like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler being in a movie or whatever. But here we just didn't. We had Kath and Kinne, which was so crazy, like 20 years ago. And it was the biggest show we ever made. But it's like, after that, everyone got amnesia. And on top of that, we weren't famous, we weren't stand-ups. There was a lot of reasons. And, maybe they read the scripts as well, but we certainly wanted, Debbie Lee was there, she's lovely, and she wanted to develop it, but the head didn't in the end. And so after that experience, we did a few other little things, and then a man called Mark Kilmurray, who works at the Ensemble Theatre, runs the Ensemble Theatre, said, what about it? Could be a play. And we went, oh, it absolutely could. We just need like 5 people, us 2 and 3 other to play everyone else. And she went, oh, no, it's a 2-person show. So suddenly we had to rewrite a TV series as a 2-woman show.
Why did he think it couldn't be 5 people?
He didn't want to pay 5 people, probably. No, seriously, they only had the money they have. And he's like, no. But also he'd worked with Kath before. He knew me. And he's like, you guys are so funny. Like he knew it would be funny. Yep. Funnier if we're trying to do this show where we're running around being crazy and we're also playing everyone, because that adds to the crazy, right? So then we'd had to invent things like, I played this South African woman called Norma Van Hoosen, who's like a really angry ex-army woman who runs like a childcare centre.
That sounds exactly like my whole family.
That's called Grow Up. Right. So the point is, we're inventing characters and we're playing ourselves and then running on for changes. And anyway, it went really well in a way that we were like, we knew this might appeal to women our own age or people, whatever. We're suddenly performing we were then probably late 30s or something, or early 40s or something, to, like 75-year-old men at Ensemble Theatre and a lot of 65-year-old, like Liberal voters potentially, or I don't know, just people who weren't our people, and it went off and it had the highest single ticket sales of that year.
Yeah,
and that is we blew up. We blew up for that little place.
No, that's pretty impressive.
Well, enough to feel like, oh my gosh. And we had like younger people, 17, 18-year-olds would come, weirdly got wind of it, would watch the play, come out and say, can you sign it? We've never seen 2 funny women doing a play on stage. And that's the truth. Like, really, where do you get 2 women in a comedy in Australia on a stage? So we were like, yeah, right, there's market. And anyway, we did that. And then we got commissioned to write a second, and it was called Still Unqualified. Amazing title. And our joke was, there's not enough sequels in theatre. That's what we meant. So we did that, and then they were midwives. Like, it begins with us being midwives and not knowing how to, and it goes on, and we become wedding planners for a big gay wedding, and and also corporate trainers, but we don't know what we're doing. And so that happened. Then he asked us to write a third, because that went really well as well. And then we kind of went, you know what, we just want to kind of retroactively see if the telly show could get up, because in all the reviews it sort of said, this should be a telly show, because its premise is every week it's a different job. And
so much you can do with that.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's really, and so look, ultimately we now have these other incredible producers, Deb Boulderstone and Xavier Marchand, and they are excellent humans, and they make a lot of big stuff. Like Xavier did Nautilus, the big TV series, and he was a producer on Spotlight, the movie, and he's an excellent guy from France. And then Deb Boulderstone is a phenomenal woman who worked on things like Dirty Deeds back in the day, and she got her stripes working at Working Title when they were doing like Notting Hill and all that. So she kind of did her thing in London, learned over there, and then came back and did stuff, and then was out of the industry for a long time, and came back to do the George Clooney, Julia Roberts film. And she was like, okay, because she'd raised her kids. And so we met them, and they were just so positive about it. It was just post Colin, and she was like, I can so feel this is very similar. And it is, because Kath Moore actually went out with Pat Brummel for 5-6 years, and he's one of my besties, and Matt Moore, my husband's attached to direct it. So ultimately the milieu is that same actors who do the comedy, right, rather than comedians in a show. And we are coming up against what you always are going to come up against, which is, how do we market you, I imagine, is what's happening, because these 2 producers are fantastic, and it just comes down to, there are very limited slots in Australia where you can actually get a show up. And often, if it's not like, what we need right now is this particular thing, which we're not, right, we're 50-year-old women, that's not a thing at the moment that anyone really needs to push, then you're ending up like, where's your profile? And I think for Deb certainly, and Xavier, they were like, oh, Colin, because in London it went so massively big, and here, that somehow that would encourage people to go, oh, well, Jen Hegney's in that, and she's part of that, and her husband directed the first season, half of the season, and both of them thought that. And I think maybe somewhere else that might have an impact, but here it hasn't seemed to yet. So we're just in that same
mind.
spot. Well, we're in that spot where we got great funding from, we've got funding from Screen West.
Oh, you got nice.
We're just funding to write it, develop it, and our friend Tony McNamara, who wrote, who's the great and the favourite Academy nominee, he's our mentor. So we've got great people involved. It's just, it is hard all the time to find the slot, because in Australia, we might make 3-4 comedies a year. Do we make 5? And you kind of think, if you're going to make a comedy this year for your network, it's going to be Colin From Accounts again. It's not going to be a new thing, or you know what I mean? Yeah. Or, something else that's been developed is too similar, right? We've been told that. And so you kind of turn on telling, 2 women doing a job. Okay, this is a show about, and even though we started writing ours 12 years ago, if something kind of feels too similar, a network will go, kind of got something similar. So it's just not a big enough pond for there to be that many, things made. And luckily we're at a point this many years down the track where they're like, you can't even anymore feel like, that seems unfair. It's just the reality. The hope is at some point it can get made, because we think it would be really good, and we've worked very hard on, like, the scripts are objectively, worked over 12 years and in front of audiences, which is what they thought would be good. Well, yeah, like we wrote knowing that is a laugh that's going to work, because we'd write laughs and then they wouldn't work, and so you refine them in front of a live audience. And again, that kind of thing with, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Fleabag, that meant something in England. It doesn't necessarily mean the same thing here. I
have so many questions, and I'm really proud of you, because it's, 12 years is a long time, and, you get you think it's going to be a TV show, and then it's not going to be a TV show. I'm sure you're devastated. You do a play, the play blows up. You think you're going to maybe get a TV show. You then do the play. This whole, to keep on going is so inspiring, especially for me, given that this is what I do. I don't write plays.
Great. Yes, but you write stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Could you not get a backing from UK to do it?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got someone who wants to. Yeah, we have a company in UK, which she got first. The Deb at Content London. There's a production company over there who's willing to put in money and everything, but they just need an Australian streamer or network to agree, and we can't get one. So you're also in that situation where you're like, there's someone over there saying, from these scripts, we're in. But they're only part of the budget.
What about Netflix? Can that
No,
work?
it's all the same. No, well, that's the same. You can't get into, they're not making half an hour at this point, or certainly at that point, they weren't making half hour comedy. So then you've got, everything's been tested. It's just, like maybe 5, even 6 years ago, when they were trying to make Australian content, and everyone was like, Paramount this. Now a lot of them are going, let's all pull in, because post-COVID and post kind of in a way, the death of the golden age of television means that everyone's doing this.
It makes sense. I'm proud of you.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I know that doesn't get you anywhere, but I'm really excited and hope it gets out, and just that
journey. One day, maybe. But also what's great about it, the great part is it was learning with my, it's like the work for us, and we didn't get paid for years for it, was the joy. Like sitting with my friend Kath Moore, who's the funniest person probably I've known. Like I know a lot of funny people, but in terms of how fast her brain works and the way we work together, I call her comedy savant. Like she's very, very funny, clever, and works really hard, and we both work really well together. That has been the greatest joy. And when you're a kid, and you're just making up things with your friends, that's how it feels. So that's great. And then, it's led us to this third play we ended up writing, which is called Fly Girl. Yeah, which is going to be on at Ensemble in October. The real life story of Deb Laurie and her fight against Reg Ansett to be able to be the first female commercial pilot in Australia. And a story that's never been told when we have got about 19 incantations of Ned Kelly. It's quite crazy it hasn't been told. Right. But that's led us to this point where we've written this, what feels like, great piece about this great woman's life. None of that would have happened if we hadn't written the other 2 plays, because we learned how to write a play in the meantime. And, at this stage, it looks like that we'll try and make the TV version all film, but it looks like miniseries version with Easy Tiger, who are the people who did Colin From Accounts. So as a TV version, so all these things are not wasted. See, if it's your own creative endeavors, it's not wasted. You just don't have any idea actually how it's going to work out. You answered my next 30 questions. That's an amazing outlook, also bringing it back to play and fun, and then also seeing the stepping stones, how you've grown together. Your collaboration is amazing. I've also seen you guys in interviews talk, and the banter between the two is so funny.
That is a great lesson. I reckon what we're going to do. Oh, are tickets out? Can people buy tickets?
Is it March? No. Interestingly, at Ensemble this year, they held back the second half years of the tickets just because of the way they're selling them. So I think they come on sale in March.
Okay, I'll make sure it's out when the ticket sales are out, and they'll be in the episode notes.
And then say, hey, notes. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
People
check it out. Awesome, amazing. I reckon what we'll do to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment.
Oh gosh, okay, yep.
So the first thing that springs to mind, but take your time. I'm not going to comment because I'm going to derail them.
Okay.
But I think we'll tie in a few points. What has Colin from Accounts done for your confidence?
Weirdly, I don't think it's done anything for my confidence, which I think is a good thing. I think it's like you work really hard on a lot of shows and some of them hit. I think what it's done is prove the idea that if you have funny bones, which Pat and Harry do, and you write a funny script that's in your own voice and you cast funny people and you're allowed to do it the way you envision doing it and it's directed by funny people, that it will hit no matter where in the world it is. Because it's one authentic vision kind of, held together by all these creative forces, all of whom actually are funny. So it's made me go, yes, that's what I think it should be. And it has proven to be true that if you get the opportunity to work with your mates, write a show, or work in the same direction, things can turn out extraordinarily well.
I agreed.
Yeah.
I said I wouldn't comment, but I hope the rest of Australia is watching because we have a lot of potential and this is the best comedy Australia's ever produced. Will there be a next season?
I have heard that maybe. I've heard whispers. I've heard whispers that there will. And the only reason it's not really happening quickly is due to a new baby that came on the horizon, but also both Harry and Patty have kind of big jobs they're heading into. And so they let us know that it wouldn't probably be until 26 that we'd see anything. And I hope I can say that, like, that's the information I have. And I wasn't told I wasn't allowed to say that.
That's so exciting. Congratulations. Last few, what are you most proud of?
I do think I'm proud of surviving an industry that hasn't always been kind to women and not having Botox.
Very nice.
And getting to and the part of the survival is learning to say difficult things and have difficult conversations and not, necessarily being liked for certain things, but standing by what I actually morally think about something, right? Having certain principles that I haven't compromised on, even though that has not made it for the easiest ride.
Yeah.
I think I am proud of that. Yeah.
That's when I create who I want to work with, it's all about integrity and authenticity, and you nail it.
Oh, thank you. She pulls her face off and she's like a devil.
A lizard.
I'm a lizard. Yeah. I'm an alien.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hello.
I believe you're mates with Tim Minchin. What's the best advice he's given you? Or
oh my gosh. Is he giving me advice?
Or is he
wouldn't dare. No, I'm lying. No, seriously. He is, look, you know what is great about, what's great about Tim is that he really is the same person. So guess what he's told me is that fame doesn't have to turn you into a different person, right? He really always has been the guy he is. And I think he works hard at being that guy, but also he genuinely does love having a chat with a trumpet player more potentially than he would with a famous person or rock star or whatever. Like he's of the people still, right? And then on top of that, just this magic of wanting one thing, which was he wanted to be a rock star, right? And in fact, I think, some of the stuff he's working on now is some of his stuff from many years ago. And I think he's just done a little show at Piedmont little, I'm sure it was massive, but from his songs from Timmy the Dog, which was the band we used to go and watch him play in, when he kind of was like, oh, I want to be a rock star. And the rejections of that, which were really painful, and then having to play 4-hour sets like week after week to earn money of other people's music, right? To have that, and for him to have to be able to pivot into like, oh, I can't seem to get that happening. And he also liked acting, like he wanted, and he even admitted to me recently, he's like, I didn't even think I could go to acting school. I just felt like, no, I'm not an actor. Like, like that's how even though he really wanted it. So there's things he wanted that weren't happening, and that he then ended up finding this other thing, which only he could do. He really did just find the thing he was meant to do. And from that, like that year that he won the Perrier Award, he the year before, I remember him saying something ridiculous, like, he earned some thousands or whatever the year before playing piano, and the year after it was some hundreds of thousands or something. That's definitely a misquote. But what it was he was just another guy schlepping it. And then suddenly people saw this show and went, oh my gosh, this is like so original. And so I guess without saying anything, he's not going to say, hey, I'm real. What is inspiring about him is he was, just one of the gang, and he worked really hard and had a real talent for something, and he didn't give up when he didn't get the thing he thought he wanted.
And he pivoted in a direction, and he's become like the best in the world at that. That's crazy.
At that thing. That's right. And he is still like, a decent guy who chats to everyone and doesn't, tries to keep friendships up. And even when you have struggles, he'll try and he'll actually make the effort to talk about them, which is so rare for any person, right? No one wants to be like, oh, that interaction wasn't great, so I'll just leave it. That's not what he does either, which is why I think he's got rigorousness in that. And actually super proud. I'm super proud of the way he speaks up on issues that, his Cardinal Pell song, I was showing that to my 10-year-old the other day, and explaining about what he did. And I'm like, that was so brave. Right? That was just so brave, because in a culture where cancellation is so easy, against a church like the Catholic Church, and and he got, no doubt, like death threats and all the things that come with going, I'm going to say something on behalf of the people who can't speak. I'm going to say something's wrong. And what's wrong here is that Cardinal Pell won't come home to actually face whatever he needed to at the time. I was like, that's really, most people don't stick their neck out like that.
No, very rare.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
No
what
worries.
would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Oh. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? Oh, it's hilarious. Maybe going to a dance concert. This is what's weird. I'm really bad at dancing. Like, I'm really good at dancing on a dance floor, but I love watching choreographed dance, and I've got no skill for it. Right? Because in my rest of my life, it's weird because I don't even like using the word failure. I'm not, I must on some subconscious level have an issue with things. Like, I must think, oh gosh, I hope it's good. And like, and I didn't want to do Fly Girl, the play initially. My work wife, Kath, talked me into it because I was like, oh, I don't know that we can, right? So that must have been me going, oh, maybe we'll fail. But it was more like, I don't know we can do it. It was more like, I don't know we can do it justice, or can we do it? And she was like, we absolutely can, and we really should try this. And I went, okay. So I guess I've had times before where I felt like I was scared to do something. But this idea of failure, I just think we need to just rub it out of our whole lives, right? Because everyone who's anyone has had like bumps on the road to the thing they're going for, right? So I just go for stuff and expect it's not going to come easy. But is that failing? I don't know. Like, sometimes you turn up to an audition and you're not prepared, or you are prepared, you forget your lines or whatever. It's like, did I fail, or did you just fucking have a bad day? Right? I just think language is so powerful. And I think, I don't know, unless it's a test where there was like 10 out of, like, you got 10 questions and you got 9 wrong, and oops, they put an F there. How do you fail? I don't know. But so that doesn't even answer your question.
No, I love that.
Not into it as a word. So perhaps I wouldn't, like, my greatest fear is someone goes, okay, you're going to go on, so you think you can dance, and you're going to have to do this choreographed dance. And I would be just like, I will never do that, because my brain doesn't seem to work with choreography. That's just a fact. But if I knew I couldn't fail, I would love to be a dancer like that. Like, I watch the dance people and go, oh my gosh, imagine being able to move like that. But then I think, I'm not going to try that, because that is going to end horribly.
Well, You know, I don't know if they're still filming that show. This is going
But
to go out to the
maybe
producers.
this is going to happen.
Well,
I'm not going to be on So You Think You Can Dance because you have to be dancing, but it would be like Dancing with the Stars. But I wouldn't even do that because I'd be like, what am I doing here? There are so many good dancers. I don't need to be on the show. But that's the thing that came into my head.
I would love to see you doing that.
Thank you so much, Michael. You've been really good for my self-esteem.
No problem. You've been great for mine. Before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what's the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, dear. It's the one question you should have asked. Can I speak Indonesian?
Can you?
Ya, sedikit. Saya berbahasa Indonesia sedikit. Saya belajar di sekolah. I studied at school. Because in Perth, of course, because in Perth, you fly an hour and a half, you're in Indonesia. So it's way closer than Sydney and Melbourne, going to Bali.
That still blows my mind that they did, because, you know, at our schools, like French, Spanish, or...
We were offered French. Do you think I took it? No. Do I have regrets? Probably, because I do love the French language. And when I go to France or wherever, I'm thinking to myself, be good to know how to order this croissant. But I don't. But if I go to Malaysia, which I once did with my husband, because Malaysia and Bahasa Indonesia is the same language, we had to stop in Malaysia. We had 11 hours. I was like, wouldn't it be great if we could have a hotel? I'm so tired. And Matt was like, my God. And then I just went, maybe we need to find if there's one. And for whatever reason, I mean, that was still 15 years ago, I just walked up to someone and just started speaking Bahasa. And going, where is that hotel? And, you know, I need to go to sleep. And with, you know, Lela, I'm so tired. And he just is giving me directions. And I'm like, okay, bye, Saja, thank you very much. Goodbye. You're like, good. And Matt's looking at me going, what just happened? I mean, I don't know. It came from nowhere, but we are going to have a sleep because there is a airport hotel. And we then went to sleep for 8 hours. That's a real story. Okay.
That is amazing. I appreciate it. That's so cool.
No worries.
I learned French for like 10 years. Yes. I wouldn't be able to do that.
You could order a croissant though, couldn't you?
I don't even know if I can't now. I probably
maybe when you go back though, when you go to France next, it might just come like it did for me in Malaysia at that airport. I don't think
so. That was like a divine possession or whatever you want to call it. You were channeling something there. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, that's all. Just makes me laugh.
And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
Oh, it would be good too, wouldn't it? Look, I do have one of those things called Instagram. I'm quite bad at it, which is probably good because I don't know if social media might just be the death of us all, right? So I just look at it now and again, but I actually do put things on like, oh, this plays on and stuff. So they can definitely look there for sure. And then otherwise it's just you have to run into me. Nice. It's like the olden times. It's like try and find me on the street.
And
challenge accepted.
We're not going to say where you live, but I believe you're in New South Wales to narrow it down.
New South Wales. Narrow that down. I'm sure a lot of people are going to try and find me.
Yeah, so many. It's going to be.
I have a dog. So I'll probably be in a park somewhere.
Oh, okay. That's scary. Yeah. I hope people don't take you up on that.
No, that's right. Also on Facebook. It is funny though, because like a year will go by and then I'll go, oh, shit, I've got a message. There'll be like 97 messages. I'll go, oh. But then I usually do get back. So sometimes it's like a year later, I go, hello, thank you for that invite to that thing. It's a year later. But like they'll get me eventually.
Oh, that's hilarious. Amazing. I'll put that in the episode notes below. I appreciate your energy, your authenticity, your integrity.
Thank you, Michael. Oh,
this was great.
Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good on you. Thank you for doing this, actually, giving us a bit of a platform.
One of the many things that resonated with me is how Jen talks about being more than an actor, in that your life experiences are crucial to living a better life. Growth, enjoying life, and being a participant in life is crucial to the art. Knowing yourself is critical, not even just for the acting, but for life. It may seem simple, but it really resonates with me, in that often we can overly attach to the thing we want to do, but it's important not to adopt tunnel vision because living life and participating in life is where the real magic happens. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Your job is not your life. It is a means to live your life. Anonymous. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.